The left wing will stop at nothing to make sure America is disarmed and the Second Amendment is gone. They are now classifying nonviolent incidents as gun violence just because a gun was found at the scene. The Truth for Guns reports that in the last 10 reported so-called school shootings, no one was injured or killed. So how can that be classified as gun violence? Some of those cases, they found guns at the scenes. They were locked in a bag and not even fired. For more, let's bring in the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, Dr. John Lott. We also have the director of Federal Affairs for Gun Owners of America, Aiden Johnston. Welcome to you both. I want to ask you both this. The left is doing this to try to take away our gun rights. It's pretty obvious. And they're corrupting the government stats with the government's help to do it. John, what's your take?
I mean, the Gun Violence Archive, for example, about a year and a half ago, it was discovered that they had been lobbying the Centers for Disease Control to remove data from their website on the rate of defensive gun uses. And their argument that they made to the Centers for Disease Control was that it needed to be removed because it made it more difficult for them to go and lobby for the types of gun control laws that they wanted to have. That's simply an inappropriate argument for somebody to go and make to a so-called scientific organization. It shouldn't be relevant at all, and they should know that it shouldn't be relevant. The CDC shouldn't try to consider those types of things. But the Gun Violence Archive, unfortunately, is used constantly by the media across the country. Whenever there's a mass public shooting, you'll see places from CNN or whatever, New York Times, Washington Post, which will say, you know, there was this Lewiston, Maine shooting, and there have been 600 of these that have occurred over the year, making people believe that there's 600 shootings like the Lewiston one, where there were 18 people murdered at the bar and what have you. And the problem is that, you know, they're just comparing apples and oranges. The Gun Violence Archive includes cases technically where there's 4 or more people injured, not even all those shot, but they actually include cases where there's 3 or more people injured. And almost all of those, well, the vast majority anyway, about 80% of them are gang fights over drug turf, and most of the rest are robberies.
Right. So, yeah, and Aiden, Aiden, let me get Aiden into this conversation, Dr. Lott.
Sure.
Aiden, we know that the objective to all of this is collusion with government to remove our Second Amendment rights.
That's absolutely right. I think Dr. John Lott was spot on. If the Gun Violence Archive has one role in the anti-gun community, it's to sow disinformation. Their entire objective is to provide anti-gun resources to inflate mass shooting numbers in order to scare Americans who are looking for data to make informed policy decisions into believing that they need gun control. And this has been weaponized. Like Dr. Lott says, the Biden administration has used the Gun Violence Archive as an excuse to censor pro-gun statistics from the CDC's website. And even the FBI will report about a few dozen mass public shootings per year, but the Gun Violence Archive will inflate that number with fake nonviolent incidents all the way up into the hundreds. This is absolutely unacceptable, and no one should take this website seriously, although unfortunately many in the fake news media do.
They do. Yeah, guys, I got about 30 seconds for each of you, but I want you to comment on this because everybody's always asking us to present the problem and a solution. So I want to ask you guys about that. With the government working hand in glove with these gun-grabbing groups, with the NRA in disarray, endorsing left-wing Republicans, even in my home state of Texas, and a GOP that is less and less likely to stand up to Democrats and defend their voters from these gun grabbers, how do we preserve our right of self-defense? Dr. Lott, what would you suggest?
Well, I mean, people have to educate themselves about some of the things that we're talking about right now. But look, I want to do something to stop these attacks, but I want to do something that matters. Unfortunately, Biden just this last week, after the Uvalde report came out, wants to have universal background checks. It wouldn't have stopped that. It wouldn't have stopped one mass public shooting this century. But look, I look at that, and it was a place where guns were banned. And that's what you see time after time in these mass public shootings. These killers may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. Their goal is to get media coverage. They know the more people they kill, the more media coverage that they're going to get. And they know if they go to a place where victims aren't allowed to defend themselves, they're going to be able to go and kill more people.
True, true. Aiden, what do you think? What are the things that the folks can do to stop these agenda-driven folks in government and outside of government from taking away our rights?
Well, of course, Americans need to be exercising their Second Amendment rights, go and get a firearm, get trained with it. But also, you need to get involved in politics. You need to know who your congressman is and who your senators are. You need to be in constant contact with them and tell them to hold the bureaucrats in the Biden administration accountable. And also, I would highly recommend finding a group like Gunners of America that's defending your rights in Congress and in the courts and in the state legislatures so that you can have a Second Amendment to pass on to future generations.
John Lott and Aiden Johnston, thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate the time, guys. I got to scoot. Coming up, showdown at the border, how Texas is standing its ground after the Supreme Court's inexplicable decision to side with the lawless Biden regime. That's all coming up on Newsmax.